Get Pucked. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Get Pucked podcast. Dave, Matt, and Vito here. Our boy Greg is absent this episode, but he's boots on the ground. He's making his way to that first preseason game. So hopefully when we get him back, he can talk about his experience there. Hopefully it's a good game for him and his sake. But for us at home, gentlemen's, how you doing?
Awesome.
I am fantastic.
The
Fantastic
season
and
is
awesome.
so close.
It's
We're
like
so
it's
close.
right there.
I can taste it. I can taste it.
Right there. I know. But for all intent and purposes, hockey's back, baby. Hockey's back. It's happening. They're playing other teams. This is exciting times. And I mean, I don't know. You think back on it right now. I don't know. There's something about this. It's a long off season. It really was. But now that we're here and there's been so many little things along the way throughout the summer, I don't know. It just feels like maybe because there's a lot of excitement. It just like this doesn't feel like all of a sudden, oh, hockey just came out of nowhere. Like they've slow dripped us. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I think it's more because of the offseason they had was such a good offseason that we had action and we were excited almost all year long.
Yeah, you had a lot of good blips and then a lull and then another good one and now we're here and now the big one's about to take off. No,
Ken Hughes came back from his vacation and just blitzed everything, and the signings, Laine acquisitions, and all the rumors about who'd make it out of camp, who would be at camp, all these things. It was just it's been a fun summer for the Habs.
It has been. I think everybody's in agreement with that. And now that we're here, and now that preseason is on its way, and we're looking at the roster, and obviously there's a lot of guys that are still on the roster, quote unquote, that need to be cut or sent down or what have you. So we don't have any information at this particular point of the recording of this episode about who's actually making the team. But that being said, being the erudites that we are when it comes to hockey and this particular team, I think we can surmise more or less who's going to make the team, and barring any really wild things to happen. And to that end, I have a question, gentlemen. I'm looking at the team. We know about the top six. We pretty much got that top six in lockdown. Everybody knows it. I don't think we have to go over it. What I'm more curious about, what I want to ask you is the bottom six. If you look at the bottom six, and we can name some names just to be on the same page about who exactly we think's in that bottom six, but if healthy, key word there, if healthy, and everybody's playing at 100%, do the Montreal Canadiens have one of the best bottom six in the league? Now, before you answer, let's go and say who's on that. So it seems like the fourth line is going to be Gallagher, Armia, and Evans. That looks like the bottom one. And then you got Dvorak, Anderson, and Joshua Roy. That seems to be your bottom six. Are we in agreement?
Yes.
And I think a lot of our fans, based on a lot of the Habs fans and our followers, based on the Habs polls that we put out, would agree with you as well.
Okay. So if that's your bottom six and everybody's healthy, is that one of the best bottom six in the NHL today? Maybe not the best. Let's just call it the top tier. What say you to that statement?
I guess it could be. It depends. I mean, it's such a hard question, right? Because bottom six, nobody really studies the bottom six of other teams. You don't really see the impact of it. I mean, obviously, it's an important part of your hockey team and the construction of your hockey team, and you see some good players on that bottom six. I think it's an ideal bottom six if you're the Canadiens. I think you could spread out the talent, and you have, obviously you'll have Pizzetta in there coming in and out of the lineup as well. I think it's a good mix of physicality and, a bit of speed there. If you have a healthy Josh Anderson there, and if you have, the prospect of Joshua Roy, I think it's exactly what you want in your bottom six, right? To me, a bottom six, your third line are guys who are coming up on the up and up, or who can fill a certain type of role, and your bottom four or are pretty much guys who kind of just certainly play a role, and like Jake Evans on special teams and whatnot. So they have a very good bottom six. I don't think that's a weak point for their team. Whether it's the best anywhere in the league, I mean, it's so hard to say, right?
Can you give me a break? Like, would you say top quarter, top third? Where do you think it ranks? If I had to make you and press you to tell me where you think overall it is, without saying, oh, they're the third or the fourth best or whatever.
Right.
What do you think?
Sure, I'll go top third. I mean, look, it all depends. Also, like Brendan Gallagher's nearing the what version of Brendan Gallagher are we going to get? Which version of Josh Anderson are we going to get?
Not 30 goal Brendan Gallagher.
I don't think so.
We're talking.
We're still
all I can
waiting
say
on
is
that.
we're talking if they're healthy across the board. Okay,
but
Josh Anderson had some knocks, but last year overall played, but was a terrible season.
Yeah.
Terrible season.
That's what I'm saying.
Gallagher hurt all the time, but towards the later part of last season was actually playing quite well. Even Armia saw a bit of an uptick. Joshua Roy still a prospect, but showing a lot of great potential. Dvorak constantly hurt, but maybe he puts it together. Like, so I'm saying in optimal scenario, optimal conditions, everybody's 100%. That doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to score 30 goals or anything.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Health doesn't necessarily equal having a great season or being good.
Fair. I just don't want the injuries to be a deciding factor say, you name me 6 guys and 3 of them are always injured. So bad, terrible. Okay.
For sure. I think they have a very good, on paper, this is a very good bottom 6. Like just a few years ago, we were wondering, can Christian Dvorak be a top 2 winger? Can he fill into that role? I mean, I think we all knew he wouldn't, but people were debating that, and now he's penciled in there as your third line center. And Armia is a guy who we can see can bring it at certain stretches of games at a time. So there's the potential of having the bottom 6. I need to see it in action a little bit more. I need to see what it's going to come of it. I need to see who places it. But for now, I'll give it the top third. You gave me the option of saying top third, all right? So top 10.
Yeah. So there. Let's just to make it simple, they're in the top 10. Top 10 teams in the league. They have the best bottom 6.
Sure.
Okay. Vito, do you concur?
I would agree with top 10. I mean, if everybody's healthy and everybody's filling their role and all that, yeah, I would say the only thing I have some question marks is that it's not a very speedy bottom 6. It's a lot of guys who are on the slower side, with the exception of Josh Anderson, who plays a very north-south game, and if he wants, he can really outskate certain players and defensemen. But everybody on there, if you look at the bottom 6 and all the players you mentioned, they're not the fastest players in the world. In fact, you have Gallagher that's quite slow. You have Armia that uses more of his IQ and his forechecking to win battles. You've got Dvorak, who's not the fastest guy in the world. Joshua Roy is very smart and uses his IQ as well, but he's not the fastest guy either. So that's a concern for me. But everybody, if you look at the bottom 6, everybody's got some kind of role. Everybody's got some kind of skill set that can actually, from game to game, help the team tremendously. When you look at, like I said, Armia with his forechecking, Josh Anderson with his power forward ability when he wants to do it, the fact that he can crash the net. Gallagher's a pest. Dvorak is a two-way guy if he stays healthy, and Joshua Roy is really the wild card there because he's a guy, in my opinion, while he's probably going to start on the third line, he's got second line upside. So it has the makings of being a very good bottom 6, but everything has to kind of work for it to really be top 10. But on paper, it is a top 10 bottom 6 in the league, in my opinion. Maybe not first, maybe not second, but somewhere in that 7, 8, 9, 10 range, I would say that.
Okay. And let us go ahead.
It's tough to say, right? Because you look at a team, for example, the Leafs that we watched play yesterday. They have John Tavares, who had 65 points last year, who's going to play on their third line alongside Max Pacioretty, right? So I mean, that's a pretty decent start to your bottom 6. There's room to improve, but they have some good role players there as well. And I'm sure that's just what comes to mind because literally they played yesterday. But I'm sure if I went down and to memory to look at each team's top 6, I mean, bottom 6, you'd find some gems in there, and it's just how they come across together. And I just find the potential is there for the Canadiens to have an amazing bottom 6, because if you look, there's not really guys you're like, oh, I can't believe this guy's here. He's going to really, weigh down this line or whatnot. They're all guys who could technically on paper perform well, and
they're all workhorses.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it's exactly the type of player you want on your bottom 6. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to work, but I'm just saying on paper, this team should be.
I probably should have said it that way, actually. Sorry, Vito. I should have said on paper, do they have one of the better teams? Because you never know what's going to transpire. You never know what's going to happen. But I think what you guys are saying is dead on. I mean, I might knock them up a peg or two and say they're closer to the like 5-6 spot, just because you got guys there. You don't have a John Tavares, admittedly, and I'm sure there's a handful of teams that do have these guys that really are still quite good. And you look at the bottom six on the Habs right now with the guys we mentioned. And when was the last time any of them hit or got a smelling of like 50 points, right? And Tavares getting 65 right there, you can make some arguments. I just think as a collective, when you look at how they play, and you look at what the responsibilities are, and you look at track record, things that they have done, what they're capable of doing if they're healthy. Now, everybody's a year older, and some of them are getting towards that twilight year like Gallagher, so they might never be able to recapture what it is that they were ever capable of doing while they were healthy. That said, I still think on paper, not that any of these lines would be the second line on another team, but just there's something about that six sitting in your bottom six that makes them, I don't know, it like they fill in very nicely everywhere.
It's a lineup that a lot of teams are going to sleep on, because when you look at them on paper,
sure.
the names that are there, they're not sexy names, but those guys all have roles. A lot of them have already been playing with each other for quite some time, so the chemistry is already there. It's not starting from the ground up. There is secondary scoring ability there, and remember, the third and fourth lines get put on again. They get put on the ice to play against certain players, to either defend, tire them out, whatever, and at least give the top six enough time to regain energy to go right back and attack again. So there's ways to navigate, and you have those strategies. But we all know what Armia can do, right? You look at Armia, the guy, when he wants to light it up, he can light it up with his body and frame. When he wants to have one of those games and take over, and he can do it. It's just he's very inconsistent.
Few and far between. But I will say this: I think when I think about the line that interests me the most is that Dvorak line with Anderson and Joshua Roy. I mean, there's a lot of ifs. I'll say it right up front. There's a lot of ifs, but if Andy can find what he was capable of and the path that he was trending towards before the last season and even the season before, where he's not quite the guy that everybody's thought that he would be. If he can find another level, if Dvorak could at least be the Dvorak from Arizona and not the guy that he's been since he's been here, if he can be that potential 50-point guy, if Joshua Roy, who, like you said, has potential, second line potential on an upside, is playing there against a weaker matchup. I mean, like you said, it could be a lot of ifs, but it could be a very, very interesting supplementary scoring line for this team.
Well, and for Dvorak, remember, it's a contract year. So typically players on contract years tend to have really good years. Now, again, it's a big what if. And as for Anderson, I don't think his season can go barring a crazy injury, can't go any worse than what it was last year for him. It can't.
If it's the same as last year, it's worse. Because I think everybody's expecting it to be better. If he somehow does the same, it's actually worse.
Like, we know his hockey IQ is not the best in the world, but he just has to go back to playing the game he was playing before. Rush, try to cause some havoc, get behind the defenseman, drop the shoulder down, get net front presence, do those kind of things that create space for your line mates, and he'll be useful. But if he plays a perimeter game, if he ends up, playing like he's worried to get hurt, or shoots as much as he did last year and misses the net as much as he did last year, then no, it's gonna be a really
well. I mean, Dave probably knows his shooting percentage, right? Maybe not the exact number, but it was like it's so bad that you almost like it's unobtainable to be that bad for that long. It was just insane. It was an anomaly. It was crazy.
It seemed as though he was snake bitten, and there were some flashes of Josh Anderson last year when you were kind of like, man, like if he could just finish, but at the end of the day, he's never been a consistent player, right? Ever since he came here, even in his days in Columbus, he's had flashes of greatness, but he hasn't been consistent. And then there's only so many seasons you can go along with this until you realize that's just the player he is.
Yeah, that's how he is.
And that's just what in the playoffs.
Yeah,
he's a good playoff guy.
Yeah, and I mean, you hope that when they eventually make the playoffs, he's still there and still able to play at that level. But It's just he's not the player they thought they were getting, and it's a shame because he has all the tools to it. It's just he just can't seem to put it together. And look, maybe it unblocks somewhere. Yeah, exactly. Maybe it unblocks somewhere.
That's what he's missing.
Ifs.
There's so many. Like, to me, it's like a Dalmatian will show you his spots. Whatever that saying goes. It's like there's only so many times you can expect more of a guy until you just that's what he is, man, and you can't expect more of him. But that shooting percentage, it's got to go up.
I think it has to. When thinking about it, and what I wanted to say before is for the listeners, let us know also in the comments what your thoughts are about the bottom six of the Habs. Where do they rank up in the league? However you want to explain it. If you want to throw they're the third best, or if you want to say they're the upper half. If you want to be just if upper or lower of the teams of the league, or top third, what have you, we'd be curious to hear what you guys have to say about that. I want to switch gears though, gents, because obviously nobody who's talking about the Canadiens is not talking about Lane Hutson. What he did in the rookie showcase, or the rookie tournament, or whatever they're calling it, it was ridiculous. I mean, a lot of people saying like he shouldn't have even been playing there for what he was doing, even in the inter squad, everybody must have seen that saucer pass by now. Just insanity, just crazy stuff that this guy does. So I have a question, just a simple question, but one that I think a lot of people are going to start talking about. Could Lane Hutson have a legitimate chance of winning the Calder this year? You got some really big rookies coming into the league. You got Celebrini, specifically. Cutter Gauthier also is going to make his debut. There's a couple of others as well. I don't know, something about a defenseman against these forwards, and the way forwards typically are the ones that normally get the nominee. Like, do you think that there's a legitimate chance, or is this just we're all buying into the hype too much, and I don't know.
There are certain things that would have to work out and go a certain way for it to be the case. He'd have to basically come into the lineup right away, be productive right away, hit at least 50 points this season as a defenseman to be able to make that happen. Quarterback, a power play. It has to be a big overall package for him to basically dethrone or get certain players that are, practically a shoe-in for the Calder out of the equation. Like players like Celebrini, people are going to put in Michkov and among other players.
Yeah, Michkov, of course, yep.
Right. So because those guys could come out hitting 65 and 70 points in their rookie years if all goes well. So if Lane Hutson hitting 50 points, which would be incredible, by the way, for a rookie defenseman, especially for the Montreal Canadiens. But if he were to hit something like that, and then he had in an 82-game schedule, provided he played every game, if he all of a sudden, 70 of those 82, he played at the same pace and had the same performance, he's going to be in contention for sure. He's going to be a contender for sure. There usually is always a defenseman that's a contender or that's in the mix. And if you look back, there was Sider, there's McCarr, there's all those other players that have passed by that have always been in the discussion for the Calder in the past. There's always one. The question is it going to be Lane Hutson?
Well, yeah. So in the past 9 years, there have been three of them. There's been that have won the Calder, right? There's Sider, you mentioned him. McCarr, he won, and Ekblad won, right? Yeah. During his year, so it's not something that's extremely rare. It seems to happen. You just have to have an exceptional season. I think Sider did hit the 50 points when he won his Calder.
He had 50 points.
I'm looking at it right now. McCarr and Sider both got 50. You go back to Ekblad. I don't know who was the rookie crop of the 14-15 season. He did it with 39 points. You can go back a bit further to 09-10. It's Tyler Myers, 48 points. I don't want to go too far back. Barrett Jackman in 02-03.
But you see what the threshold is? It's like
50. It looks like 50 points. Yeah.
You hit that 50 points as a defenseman, the eye is on you. Anything below that, you'd have to have one of the best defensive years for a rookie.
If I recall, Ekblad had a pretty decent rookie season. Maybe not points wise, but I think they leaned on them quite a bit during his rookie season. That being said, I mean, I think it's possible for Lane Hutson to win the Calder. I think he'll be in the mix. I think he should be a candidate. It just depends. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. I mean, he's a young defenseman, and it's going to be like, look, to me, a guy like Matvei Mishkov is probably a guy who's probably most likely. I don't think you mentioned him, but I think he's a guy who's. Oh, you did.
Vito
All
did.
right. I didn't hear him mention, but I mean, he's probably a guy who's going to end up probably a mix of things. Celebrini, obviously, interesting as well. Lane Hutson could do it, man. It depends. He just has to have a good season. He has to be solid. He has to, and I think that the Canadiens are going to give him every opportunity. Probably, like it seems as though they're giving him every opportunity to make this team. And I think that for now, it seems as though it's his spot to lose. But at the end of the day, like he has to perform and he has to put up those points and he has to do what is necessary to do it. I don't think it's crazy to say that he's not a potential candidate. Is it likely? Probably not, but it's possible. It's certainly possible. I honestly just don't see it, but I mean, I'm open to everything.
If by the end of the year, he's even in the discussion for the Calder,
successful season.
That's beyond successful. But you know what? Upon reflection, I think I should have phrased the question more to the way Vito answered it, which is to say, what does Lane Hutson have to do to be a guy who's nominated or win it? Wow. And when you start giving the metrics, like he has to be visible in quarterback and power play. 50 points is a minimum. He has to have top time on ice. He has to do you said it. So what are the metrics?
One thing about the journalists who vote, they can't watch every single game, right? So what's going to play in Lane Hutson's favor?
The highlights
is the highlights that he's going to put up, right? If he could be on the highlight once a week, it's a proven fact. When Ovechkin was nominated for both wings because they didn't even know what wing he played for. Like, it's a proven fact. You can't watch every single game. You watch the highlights and then you vote. That's what it is. And you vote based on reputation. You vote based on. I mean, it's a flawed system, right? When it's not voted on by the players, when it's voted on by the journalists, it's a bit of a flawed system. And so that's just what it is. And I think that's one thing that's going to really help him is that if he could put up decent numbers, if you see he's on power play one and putting up the time there, and if you see once a week he shows up on SportsCenter with a razzle dazzle, I think it's going to help him a lot more.
And he can't get sent down. He can't get sent down.
Yeah, at any point.
If he gets sent down at any point during the season or even starts the season in Laval, you could forget the Calder. The only way you could catch up on that is if he starts the season in Laval, comes back, plays 65 games in the NHL, and still manages like 48, 50 points, and you're like, okay, there's something
without question. Without question. Obviously, I think if he goes down, that would just be a testament to the fact that he's not doing very well. And then quite obviously, that's not going to be a thing. But I think we're all in agreement. And I think those are respectable numbers. And they fall in line with guys that have won the Calder as defensemen in the past. And that he would be in very good company, man. It would be really nice to see. It'd be pretty wild stuff. I know a lot of people talking about obviously Michkov and Celebrini and these guys, and obviously I think they're going to do very, very well. I have no reason to suspect otherwise, but Lane Hutson could be that guy. And
look at Brock Faber. Brock Faber was
nominated.
It was in discussion for the Calder, and he had 47 points last season.
Yeah.
So that's the threshold. It's that 50 point mark or anywhere very close to it. Or over, obviously.
Has a Hat player ever won a Calder trophy? I'm trying to think. I can't recall a list of players.
I can't think so. I can't think of one. Not.
I honestly can't think of
like
one.
Ever.
I don't think. I honestly can't think of one.
Yeah, I got the list here. Okay, I'm 1940, 1951, 1958, 1961, 63.
Okay, so back when
Ken Dryden in 1971.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah. That's right.
Okay, so back when there was 12 teams.
That.
Okay,
but that is a fantastic little piece of trivia. The last Hab to win the Calder was 1971.
Was Dryden? Wow.
Was Dryden.
So there you go. I mean, it's
wow. There you go, listeners. Maybe you learned something today. Share that little piece of information with your fellow hockey enthusiasts.
And just to be clear, though, it's not a terrible. Like if he doesn't get nominated and he doesn't put up 48 points, it doesn't mean it's a failed season.
Oh no, I don't think you judge.
No.
Yeah,
but I think a lot of people
season on Calder nomination. That said,
people
though,
would,
I think the hype train for this player has him on that trajectory. For the casual fan, from what they've been hearing about this kid, I think given this moment in time, that is an expectation. He might not win it, but at least he's going to be in the conversation. And that's a lot of pressure. Like you said, it is a lot of pressure. It'll be interesting to see how the kid plays it out.
You can see so far he's not buckling under the pressure. He's actually thriving in it. He's enjoying himself. The confidence this kid has to even do the saucer pass and things like that. He just has this. He has a certain confidence that it's not one that he walks with a swagger, but it's just he shows it on the ice.
I gotta see, and I have full faith in the kid. But to be a realist about the situation in his regards, we got to do an assessment after 10, 20 games of NHL play.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then you'll see if he's buckling. You'll see if he's ready. Again, his biggest knock, the biggest knock, is his size. Can he play the way he naturally wants to play the game? And will he be able to do that with the guys that are out there that are the size that they are compared to him?
Another thing to remember is he's coming from college, right? And college kids, we see it year in and year out. They fizzle out at the end of the year because they're used to playing whatever their schedule is, 50 games. They're not used to 80-game schedules. So there's a potential that he just, he starts off well and he peaks at one point, which is totally normal and I think understandable. It would probably hurt his Calder chances, but it doesn't mean it's a bad trajectory for his career. I think we need, there's going to be so much pressure on him and I think people just need to taper their expectations just a little bit, but I think it's going to be exciting. And I think there just hasn't been this much excitement attached to this team. So it's normal. And I think he's embracing it well. And I think I can't wait to hear the ovation on opening night if he makes the team.
I think it's going to be, I mean, first off, that could be probably the last question to ask you guys. I did have another one, but maybe that's it. What is your most, out of all the storylines that are out there leading into the season, and there are actually quite a few of them, which is the one that you are most excited about? Would it be, and I'm just naming a few, you're welcome to add another one if I miss it. Is it the Lane Hutson experience and what he can do? Is it Patrick Laine, and can he capture some magic and return to that 50-plus player, that goal scorer that he can be? Is it Kirby Dach? Can he stay healthy? Is he going to take that step? Is he going to go back to the guy that we were seeing glimpses of and making that push to being like a 1B center? Is it the goaltending? Can Montembeault and Primo carry the load? What are you most excited about?
To me, well, I'm excited. It's Kirby Dach. I think the most important storyline is Kirby Dach, because if Kirby Dach doesn't bounce back, if Kirby Dach doesn't come back from this injury as expected, if Kirby Dach, and it's not as if like he still had to prove himself before the injury. He wasn't a proven 2C or 1B, whatever you want to call it. Like he wasn't a proven by any means. He still, to me, had a lot to prove in terms of being an NHL centerman. And so then he got injured, and now he has two things to prove. Can he bounce back from the injury, and also can he play that role? Because if they don't, then you're right back to the Canadiens having a hole right there, and it's something that you're eventually going to have to address and fill. Like I think people are taking it for granted, and I think okay, Kirby Dach's there, and because he was injured again, like I spoke about it before, we have the luxury of not have any doubts about him because he didn't play, so there's no doubts about his game. But I think that's the most important storyline. Is it the sexiest storyline? Is it a very exciting storyline? I wouldn't say so. But I think
you're answering it the question in the way that you want to take it. And again, there's no wrong answers.
It's
you
what
think
I'm
that's the most
looking
important,
at.
and that's the one you're going to be watching. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. It doesn't have to be sexy. It's what you're most invested in. So we got Kirby Dach, Vito.
For me, the answer that I'm going to give for one player practically applies to another player. So it's the Laine watch basically, but it's also the Slafkovsky watch, because I want to see, it's two different timelines, two different age brackets, but is one going to come back to being a 40, 50 goal scorer or hit 50 for the first time in their career? And is the other one going to grow and progress and, continue from where he last left off in Slafkovsky? So the last few, if you watched our trivia, I said on that trivia that Slafkovsky is going to be the guy who's going to have the best season for the Montreal Canadiens this year. I strongly believe that this is a year. If you see his training, the way he is, the way he's out, the way he plays and he's carrying himself, I have a feeling that we're going to see Slafkovsky. We're going to see the first overall pick come out this year, barring an injury. I'm always going to say that because Montreal's had the injury bug the last few years. But barring an injury, I have a feeling you're going to see Slafkovsky really be the player that people expected him to be, and said that, hey, he's the that wild card player that nobody expects, that unicorn. And Laine, I just, because if Laine does hit that 40-45 goal season and it plays like, and he's smooth and he's back to the way he was a few years back, it just makes me wonder, in 2 years from now, will the Montreal Canadiens open the wallet and give it to him and keep him around? So it's kind of like, this is the season. It's very telling of where that could go. So
I gotta for not, maybe not the exact same reason. And there's so many storylines to watch. And again, I'm just for the sake of the conversation, telling you to pick one. And I'm sure we're going to be invested in all of them as they go on. And the ones that start picking up heat, we'll talk about more and more throughout the course of the season. But before the real season starts, if I had to pick one, I would have said Kirby Dach. But I think in my heart of hearts, because I was a big proponent of the Habs bringing in Patrick Laine, when many people were against that notion, I have somewhat of a vested interest to prove them wrong a little bit, to be like, I believed in this guy, and look.
And so you want to, I told you so.
I don't want to go and say I told you so, but just for my own excitement, like beyond all the exciting things that are going to be with the Canadiens throughout the course of the season, if Patrick Laine could do that magic, if he could, maybe not even 50 goals, that would be like, I'd be laughing every episode when as he's inching closer to it. But just like bounce back, man. Show you're that sniper still. Show that you're that second overall pick. Show that you've dusted yourself off. You've done what you had to do, and you've walked out, and you're just back. And to me, that's what I'll be watching the most, to see how he slowly gets the rust off, and he's back in it. And if he's able to take that step in his game to where I was hoping he'd be able to do, that's what I'm going to be watching the most this season. And now, of course, as always, I pose the question to you guys who've made it here to the end of the episode. Thanks so much for sticking with us and listening to a bunch of Habs fans rant and talk about their favorite team. And the question is, what are your storylines that you're looking for forward the most throughout the course of the season? You can name a bunch. You can tell us which one is the one that you're taking the most attentive look at. We'd be happy to read those and see in the comments below the video. As always, thank you so much. Please consider liking and subscribing, as you guys do. We really, really appreciate it. And we're very excited. We think the next episode will likely be in and around the time that the season actually starts. So for Dave and Vito, I'm Matt. Go Habs go, baby. This was Get Pucked.